be our first time really getting to see them play, not just in that sense, but also their first time playing at all this year. Because like you said, they're coming off a bye, so their first real chance to play on game day.
Yeah, they get to show to everybody and to the first time to the actual audience how they are going to perform in the entire thing. And on the other side of the coin, it's going to be Rogers University. We kind of mentioned it a bunch that they only were able to win 2 rounds, which is not really where you want to be very early on. Are you laughing at my socks are off right now?
That, and also you put it very nicely for not where you want to be right now.
I'm not
2
wrong.
rounds and
No,
it
rounds
definitely
out of
isn't.
14 is.
No, it's not. It's significantly suboptimal. And yeah, I mean that. Look, for all I know, they could have been playing easily the best team in the Champions Division. So
This is true.
that could have happened, but just from what we have right now,
Yeah,
not looking the best.
with the map ban, so we can kind of pivot on over to where we are going to go now that we have seen who is going to play. First map is going to be Border, second one is going to be Chalet, and the last one is going to be Bang. So starting off, we should see a very frag-heavy type of play. Then we go to Chalet, which is a very popular ranked map, and among the competitive scene, it is one of the higher play.
Yeah, and so when you look at these two teams, we always talk about it in collegiate, right? They're typically going to stick to some of those more known, more universally constant maps that haven't really changed for a long time, and so that makes sense given this map pool. You're going to a lot more of those reliable maps. We're not seeing them really go for anything crazy like a Consulate or like a Labs or anything that may get too intricate. That'll probably be more of a pocket pick. Maybe we'll see some of the better teams in the league who are more adequately prepared for some of those special maps, whip one of those out later in the season. But for now, both of these teams just trying to, feel each other out and not trying to overcomplicate things very early on as we hop into Clubhouse, perhaps the most basic of any map thus far. And it'll be a very good kind of starting point for us and a reference point for these teams, because if we want to criticize them, it's best to do it, or not criticize them, but kind of get a feel for how they're going to play and how skilled they are. It's best to do it on a map that everyone that plays Rainbow Six at a competitive level is going to be comfortable on.
Yeah, I can't believe I lied to everybody by feeding misinformation out in the world. I said it was Border, it was Clubhouse, but also the last map is not Bank, it's Cafe, so just clearing that straight off the board. But we go to the bans. We've got Maverick and Habana. Both do make sense, and that might enable Tubarão if Tubarão isn't banned, simply because you can't really get through him and a Kaid with that Maverick ban. And if he's staying on the board, you can bet that that defense is going to be hugely enabled.
Last one is the Castle gone. That one's a bit more of a, you'd imagine, pocket pick kind of strategy. You only really see him brought on that gym bedroom site that can enable some bandit tricking. So perhaps going to make it easier to get stuff off of those walls and enable the Ace and the Thermite to both open up that Jacuzzi wall. That'll help so much in executing towards that objective. And so with the Castle off of the board, it is kind of a bit of a strange ban, because normally there's so many other bans that often take precedence, and you consider that Castle's kind of, even in this case, only used in one scenario. You're leaving up a lot of operators like Azami, we see Fry picking up in this round, but even some other ops like a Fenrir, or like you had talked about so much in the ban phase, a Tubarão still on the board. So you're going to have a lot of tools on that defensive side, especially since one of those bans is only really applicable to one site at all. So you're still having a lot of broadly helpful ops that you can have access to for the rest of this map. Still pretty standard defensive lineup, though, for Rogers State, I would say.
Yeah, they start on CC, which actually has fallen off a little bit. A lot of times teams will prefer to go to gym, go to basement, but there is one operator that does enable that CC, and it is Azami, with Fry having that ACS-12. It is a very powerful gun, especially with the 1.5 in the hands of a good player. So we'll see if Rogers State starting here, they'll be able to get a really good head start and jump all the way to that to a primary site that some of those higher tier players really like to run. But so far, Kansas State, they're just going to be running with the basic Thatcher, Thermite, get the wall open, and then you're either going to have to pivot on over to construction or rafters, but they don't really have the operators to go for rafters. So my first thought is that they're going to go from that northern side over, and they'll have to go through Benito to do that first.
It does look to be a bit more of a northern side focused take. They're leaving Unified over towards Garage, probably just hoping to find a pick wherever he can. Is the bandit trick perfectly timed? And my socks are off right now, making sure that the exothermic charge is not able to blow up that big wall. And that's going to make things so much harder. A Thatcher is still on the board for Kansas State, but they only have one EMP up on said Thatcher. So they're going to have to bait out a lot of those bandit charges before they can confidently get the wall open. And my socks are absolutely blown off after that huge kill from my socks are off right now. Taking down Unified. Opening pick onto the Yana, and now this push is really going to need to come through the backside because the bandit has killed your entry and has made sure the wall cannot get open quickly. Based on the audio, it has just been opened, but even still, that's only so much control, and you're at a player disadvantage.
This really is looking to be like a one player is dictating the round. Benito is going to have a say in this as they have to back up through Cash. The wall is open, but a great crossfire coming through from Rogers State. And the other two players, we see one outside on the rappel and one just on the subroof. So you're not really going to have a lot of options here. You could try peeking Fry, who has those Kiva barriers, has the ACS-12 with a massive magazine. You see 31 shells in their back pocket, along with 3 other players who can provide them covering fire. Kansas State, you kind of got to call this one a loss at this point. Your construction-sided take did not come well together, and I think you have to worry about how the defense is going to set up with the angles that you give them in the future, but considering that this site isn't going to be going on until round 4, that's a future thing to worry about.
I do like the call to try and isolate the Garage player that it looked like was coming out for just a moment, but the Garage player has not been isolated. And so Fry is going to keep on shooting. String in a 1-on-4 is not going to be able to do anything. The first round will go to RSU on the defensive side.
It wasn't too much of a big play by Kansas State. They didn't really do too much to actually enable themselves. It was just trying to get the wall open and hoping that Rogers State would simply give themselves up to their opponents, and they didn't. There's not much to actually look upon in that entire round. Happy. So it's more about fixing your own mechanical skill, saying, hey, how can we enable each other to win these gunfights rather than just simply taking them one-on-one.
So far into round number 2, I like the selections of the Dokkaebi and the Ying that seem to be coming through. That's definitely going to be helpful in, like you said, enabling gunfights between blinding the other team so they have a harder time shooting back, and also giving that passive info. I did kind of feel like maybe they were lacking some of that information. A lot of defenders would just swing some, I don't want to say predictable corners, but not completely out of the ordinary positions, and it felt like Kansas State were not at all prepared for some of those swings. So for now, like you said, time to enable your teammates. I think the Ying and the Dokkaebi will be doing that quite a lot. But it's on the basement defense, which many people consider to be the very best bomb site on this map. Seems like Rogers State prefer Cash and CC, but regardless of what they prefer, it's still, this is a very good site for defense. So you'll need a lot more than just enabling in the gunfights to help you win them with this many advantageous angles for the defense.
I mean, all things considered, it's just the first round. You do have a little bit of time to warm up, get things going, make sure your mouse is calibrated correctly. So you can't go around criticizing Kansas State for missing these shots when, say, yeah, you do have a little bit to work with. The Jackal, though, getting some nice little scans. There isn't too many roamers to actually worry about, but they do have to worry about the cameras that you see Jake utilizing. A great kitchen one, couple over in blue. But Kansas State needs to realize that there isn't much going on in the roam. They can simply eliminate that second and first floor take and worry about their buck and use everything from there. Like, you don't want to waste much time here.
Unfortunately for Unified, he scanned the green footprints when I
did see
believe...
that. Yeah, there was a red right next to it.
There was a red one right next to it. For those of you who don't know, the red ones are newer. So as it gets closer to blue, it gets, technically that's showing that it's getting older and older, and you get less and less track scans off of that. So just a fun fact for anybody who is a big Jackal fan or didn't quite know that. Now you do, and now you can use that properly. Not to say that he used it improperly. You weren't really going to get any big info that you could capitalize off of anyways. It's just good for getting general information as to where the defense might be playing, but they cannot flush out either Jake or Fry, as the two opening picks this round will go to the Mozzie and will go to the Mozzie and the Valkyrie. So a two-player disadvantage for Kansas State with only a minute to work into the bomb site.
Information is really big for Roger State. I don't know if they actually got rid of the black eye that was in the kitchen itself. You can see that Jake had a couple of drones that they were able to use. And with dirt being the only real thing that Roger State has to worry about right now, simply because there isn't any other attacking pressure from any other entry areas, and that needs to be applied if they want to get a pinch going. Unified, you can't really do anything with that Surya gate. It's a big indicator when you hear that flash coming through when you throw a projectile through it, or if you walk through it. Like Jake sees, he know that there's a player in dirt. He's ready for it, and Kansas State is going to have a quick, hot, and heavy attack in these last 15 seconds.
They could try and run in from bottom main. I like that idea, but Unified's just gone down to Fry, so it seems that someone's still kicking inside the back of Armory, and the C4 is absolutely perfect. Couldn't have been any better in that round for Rogers State, unless you saved the life of the one player who died, but I'm sure you're perfectly fine with that. Rogers State, again, are able to take the defensive rounds. They've evened themselves with their number of rounds they took last week after that round win.
You take those wins. I mean, you can't exactly say whether Kansas State is a better or worse team, depending on their record, because they essentially don't have one. They have a bye. They are 0-0, so everything here is gauging on the performance of this team, whether they're better than Rogers State, who did not have a very good week one, or if they're worse, which so far in these first two rounds, you could definitely say the attack of Kansas State on this map leaves a lot to be desired. There's just no goal with their attack. It seems like they have a very vague idea, and they try to get to that idea, and if it doesn't work, kaput. That's how the attack goes. You need to have a lot more purpose with what you're doing on the micro. And if things go awry, let's say Jake is able to find a C4 kill, you need to have a secondary option and have somebody call that for your team so you have purpose in what you're doing. That's what makes a good team happy.
Well, hopefully they'll be able to adjust that quickly. A lot of fundamental topics you just brought up that are hard to get down on the fly, but there's also a good chance
feels easy on paper, but it's a lot harder in practice.
But you know what? There's a good chance that Kansas State have that kind of stuff down. They just, are starting to warm up just a little bit, and that they've got plenty of time to do that. Opportunity for 3 full maps here today is Sox unfortunately not going to land any of the shots on the players rappelling up. Had a decent angle, but at that range, it's very hard to control any gun's recoil enough to actually effectively land some shots. And so with that, the gym bedroom attack will commence without the castle, as Rogers State chose to ban that. However, seems the jacuzzi wall getting opened up either way, as the Thatcher is going to be more than good enough at taking those bandit charges off of the main wall. And now Kansas State have that very important point of pressure opened. However, the big thing here that I'm looking for is, will they go for more? Will they start the pressure from CC side and from the highway windows? Or are they just going to try and play entirely around the jacuzzi wall?
I don't think they can do that. Rogers State has shown...
I don't think they can,
Yeah, Rogers State has shown that when you do go for a very basic one-sided take, they're just going to pick you apart. It's no contest. Unified over by that CC window, he's going to be able to take out Benito, and not only do you get that kill, you can get map control. Doesn't seem like that's actually what's going to happen, as now with about half of the round gone, they open up that construction wall, which usually would indicate that they're going to push through it, but so far, nothing is happening. It's just Unified outside spraying through that wall, and here's that lack of purpose that I mentioned earlier, is you have the ideas for the actual goal that you have, and now that you've even gotten them, like you haven't in those previous rounds, how do you engage? And it seems like they're just trying to run straight at the enemy, like we see Scoozy and String.
Seems to be working for the time being, though. String's starting to get that plant down. Fry's taking a lot of damage from the gym window, and Scoozy's just got a kill, make it 2, as he runs in through the bathroom and does a ton of damage. He'll even triple up, for that matter. It's now just left to Jake in a 1-on-4, does get the first, and knows that there's going to be one coming in through construction. That's Scoozy very low, but he doesn't even get to take a single shot at him. Scoozy, the MVP, is Kansas State. Get there first.
I think part of that was Roger State getting a little bit lackadaisical with their eye on that wall, because they had to give up the bathroom simply because of the Selma. It was, it's what it was designed to do, was lack of that space for Roger State. But they didn't have anybody over by construction. They didn't have anybody over by mattress, so they couldn't really provide a good angle to where the rest of Kansas State were going. So by the time that they were starting to get the diffuser down and Scoozy was providing coverage, all the positions where the defense needed to be weren't quick enough. They couldn't get to those positions in time to provide the angles to shut that down. And maybe it's just a sight thing. You can tell they go back over to that CC area. They clearly prefer this with the castle ban, with that gym being their third site. It may just be a preference thing in the end, Happy.
Seems to be, and I can't blame them. They had a very good performance last time they went to this bomb site, so if it isn't broken, don't fix it. However, the attack for Kansas State, maybe broken isn't quite the right word, but it definitely wasn't what they were looking for, to say the least, as they had a good idea of how they wanted to split things up, something they kind of struggled to do on that gym bedroom attack, though it did end up working, kind of brute forcing through the jacuzzi wall and playing off a couple windows. In this case, while they were attacking Cash and CC, they wanted to get the main wall open and also put some pressure in from construction, but they just lost too many bodies in the process, not anticipating Roger State playing where they were, and at the end of that round, didn't really felt like they stood much of a chance at making the comeback. And so for now, they'll have to figure out what they want to adjust. The first matter of business seems to be trying to put some more pressure early over towards that gym bedroom side, as Worm already breaking open the jacuzzi wall. Meanwhile, Green is waiting for String's help in getting the main CC breach open, as it isn't actively being tricked because Scoozy's right here to make sure that doesn't happen. The wide swing onto his position nearly gets the kill, but instead, wall opened up, mission accomplished for Kansas State.
I thought Scoozy was dead.
Me too.
With Socks pushing that window, I was like, oh, they're going to be able to get the wall open, but it's going to cost 1. And then they just took a straight flashbang to the face. And sometimes you cannot do anything about that as a defender. Step 1 gone. You have Worm and the rest having that pinch in from construction. But what are you going to do with these angles that are opened up? We're looking a little bit similar to what happened last time when they get these walls open and then they just sit. The directive for what happens once they achieve their goals needs to be there, and the fact that there's nobody really going over by lounge, going over by rafters, just scares me a little bit. Actually, well, as I say that, we do see a potential rotate. I'm not exactly sure where they're going. It is seeming to be that garage, so a very welcome change considering how the last round went.
I do like that call. Should definitely open up a lot of opportunities as you open up the garage wall. They spot Jake in Swamp, and one thing I have noticed about this Kansas State team is that when they see somebody somewhere, they can get very hesitant to make the play forward. So even that phantom pressure of someone possibly being in Swamp could be huge for this defense. However, while I was talking about that, Kansas State were busy getting the opening kill. So a 5-on-4 make it 5-on-3, as 30 seconds to go is really the only thing about this round that doesn't favor Kansas State's attack, as they've got a 2-player advantage. However, you don't want to get ahead of yourself. You need to make sure that you cross your eyes and you cross your T's and dot your I's, as Jake is going to get a kill from below with the C4, and that's another thing that could be so powerful, is they waited too long. Some mere plant denial could completely end this round, but it looks like Scoozy is going to just barely managed to get it down. 4-on-3 in the post plant. Good shot for Fry and another one for Jake. They'll bring it back to a 2-on-2, but they're always getting traded as Worm gets the next trade and even manages to double up right afterward on the player top red. Outstanding round for him and a great round for Kansas State.
You want to hear about this super cool operator idea I have, Happy? So, it's somebody
Yeah.
she's got the P90, she's got impacts, and her gadget ability can see attacker gadget through wall, even the diffuser, because it's an electronic. I think
That sounds insanely powerful.
yeah, and she's banned. She's actually in the game, and Roger State were still trying to play like they were a Solus. And there's a reason Kansas State banned the Solus so they could do things like that without having the pressure of somebody who knows their exact position, can shut down the diffuser. And I think Roger State just simply didn't commit to either being underneath or being up top. They had everybody go down below and were able to get one with the C4, but they simply had too much of a man mismatch at that point. You either have to commit to your either vertical take or the horizontal take, and the operators that you selected were not going to help you in the slightest with that. It's kind of a decision in the moment type thing, where with hindsight, maybe I'm being a little unfair on them, but it's something that I noticed with how they were really trying to counter the plan instead of actually using it where they had a little bit of space to work with.
Even notice that Mute at the top of Red Stairs shucked the C4, trying to keep himself alive. When you think about, maybe that could have been the plant denial that ends up winning him that round. If he just, instead of trying to throw the C4 up the staircase, tries to sprint away, keeps himself alive, and then uses that later. Well, no use postulating on that. No use kind of talking about a round that's already well and gone, as 40 seconds into the action phase of this next round, can already kind of tell what Kansas State want to go for. It's really just getting that armory hatch open, a very default kind of execute, taking their time and making sure that they do not miss anything. As, oh my, Worm has done some, maybe not solid damage, but he's hit Fry a little bit, because Fry was holding out either the cameras or the C4. Either way, damage dealt to a Valkyrie. Very important character to keep up late, because she has that C4 and the live information from her own cameras is very helpful in dealing with attackers trying to play up in that kitchen area. Unfortunately for her, Kansas State is actually focusing on this moto hatch first, and you can't C4 them from below while they're getting that open. So perhaps instead of the sort of armory-based attack we saw last time, they may be shifting more towards church this time around, and Benito is going to get the first kill of the round with a C4 onto Worm.
You can tell Worm's a little bit frustrated with that. That's IQ's one job. She could spot the C4, she could shoot him out, and to die on a C4 that you knew was coming is really brutal to see. Green isn't going to befall the same fate as Worm. They're still alive. They can still use the secondary hard breaches, and lucky that they are still alive, because that hatch wasn't going to be able to get open because String had used both of their secondary hard breaches. The round is kind of on a wire here for Kansas State, and that's just going to make things worse. And Unified falling, Kansas State really just have a couple options. You drop the hatch, hope for something crazy, or go for the entry and rush into a specific area. Either way, you're not really going to get too much. Roger State has so much information, so many guns covering all these areas. It's why the early game is so important, so you don't end up in this sticky situation.
If anyone can win this, it's a Ying, I'd like to imagine, but I don't even know if this Ying in this case can do that much. Flash onto the cap, and that's pretty solid. Really good frag for String to find off the back of the Candelas, but you need to start making a play off of these, because if you don't, exactly what just happened to String is going to happen to Green as well, where the flash goes away. They're no longer affected by it. They can see just fine in Jake after the Candelas expired, because it took too long for Kansas to push in, was able to get both kills and win the round.
So far, hasn't been bad for either side. And here's the point where we can start to look at, okay, what's going to happen once the side swaps. Right now, we are in a very defender-sided meta, because with the Fenrir, with the Azami, with the Solus, who's not on the board, and the Tuberal, which we haven't seen yet, it doesn't seem like it's in the strat book of Rogers State, it's so easy to just sit back on site, pester the attackers, and just be as annoying as you can with stopping their attack. Once the sides swap, are Rogers State still going to be able to maintain their momentum that they have currently? They have the ability to go up 4-2, but with such a radical change, Is there going to be a similar style of play, or are we going to see similar types of play from like we're seeing from Kansas State, who still have some of the similar problems that I talked about very early on, where maybe they're peeking these angles, trying to hope that Rogers State will lose them and they get these advantages, which is not happening, and why Rogers State are up 3-2. There's a lot of questions about what's happening.
Getting around 6 searching for answers, and similar answer on this question to the answers they've given in the past unquestioned with this particular bomb site of Cash and CC, that being going for the main wall first and trying to deal with your other options later. You've got, once again, the Thatcher and the Thermite prepared to deal with this main wall being opened, or trying to open the main wall. Yeah, with the ace charges too of the Selmas, that's going to make things a lot easier, because now you can't bandit trick it. The Cade isn't going to detonate fast enough to deny the Selma on the left side of the wall, and the bandit can't deny both walls at the same time. And so with that, you've got a doubly opened wall, just faster than every other time they've tried to go for it. Great plan by Kansas State.
Yeah, this is it. Every time they've gone here, they've just gotten better and better at it. For Rogers State, I mean, the strat book only goes so deep. There's only a certain amount of time where you can change things up as the defense. You don't really have much to work with. I do like Jake trying to see if they can get the wall down below, knowing that's what Kansas State really did like to do on that second time around. Staying in the swamp area, though, when the drones are going to be here, you can be peeked from the door, potentially from stock. As you can see, Jake is a little bit aware of where that can come from. But as things get better and better for Kansas State, the wall is going to be electrified and you stop what could be a flood of attackers.
That was the nerf, I think, affecting that directly. It was recently tweaked to the Selma charges were, so that they take slightly longer to detonate. And that was on the very edge of detonation, but not quite able to go off just yet. Sox is able to get that C4. For some reason, Unified right up close against that recently opened wall, and he's been taken down by the C4 from Sox. So that's going to make things a lot harder for this attack, not having that ace anymore. However, he's already done his job in opening those walls, so a lot of opportunities now opened up for the attack, and even more being opened up from below is Scoozy, making it so hard to play anywhere. Benito in a very exposed position, and he's been C4'd, so it's not going to be long for this world. Another kill for Scoozy, and then one more from String. Everything goes wrong after that first kill for Rogers, and Kansas State will end this half 3-3.
Yeah, they just knew at that point. You've run CC 3 times, and every single time it was pretty similar what you were doing. You get things going the first time. Second time, your opponent's starting to really read into what you're doing. They win the round. And you tried the same thing a third time, and Kansas State just absolutely walks all over you. That's why it's important to feel confident on these other sides. Kansas State going to start on the defense in the basement compared to something like that CC, which a lot of times is a very old strategy. It was very popular back when Asami didn't exist, which feels like ages ago. And if Kansas State can have a much deeper pocketbook than Rogers State does when it comes to strategies, for example, over on that gym bedroom, even though they don't have the castle, I think they really do have all the momentum going into this defense.
3-3 defensive half for Rogers State. Maybe not the best, but still you have to see their attacking prowess. And already very impressed by a number of the operators that they're running. Grim, a pretty high skill ceiling kind of operator. Also, Ram, still somewhat new. A lot of players maybe not comfortable on her just yet for the vert, but Sox is willing to bring her. And also, just the fact that they are not bringing an actual dedicated hard breach, but rather 4 hard breach charges across both Fry on Grim and Benito on Ying. Generally, speaks to the fact that these guys really know what they're going for. That's something you'll see more often towards higher levels of play, and it's something that they've added to their own strat book. Also trying to make sure that they have flank drones set up for every possible backstab angle, which is going to be important in this round because it looks like there is a Kansas State defender on the prowl trying to make sure that anyone who tries to enter the building is going to be stabbed in the back, and that'll be Scoozy up in construction, waiting for that very entry.
Ready to be oh so sneaky. There's not actually much presence by Roger State up on that second floor. It's a dangerous game to try to ignore that rumor. It seems like Fry, alone over by that garage, is a little bit wary about what potentially could happen. This is so dangerous. You have the diffuser. Fry, if this does not go well, the diffuser is dropped, you lose a player, and we're halfway through the round. Scoozy can make or break this, but it seems like they're just two ships passing in the night. The tension keeps building, but nothing keeps happening.
Oh, something's gonna happen. And Scoozy's ready for him, too. Scoozy seems to know exactly what's about to hit him from the backside near Swamp, and Fry knows what's around the corner, and Fry, quicker on the trigger and more accurate to boot. Headshot for the Grim, and an opening kill for Roger State on their very first attack. Running into issues, though, with these hatches, because the Cave Claws are placed really far away. Too far to be gotten by the Impact EMPs, and they only brought 2 of them. Smitty was banking on it, being able to just throw one at both hatches and then calling it a day. But now they don't have that Moto hatch open. They're going to have to work around the vert through the metal bars, and they won't really have... I don't even know if they got kitchen hatch open either. So this could be a very difficult attack where they're strictly working... Yeah, they didn't. They have to work now from main stairs, blue, and dirt. And they don't have anybody going blue. It is a triple main stack of an attack. And Unified is ready for that very play. At least he's ready for wherever Benito was. And String ready for Drake in that corner, taking him down with the C4. And they're really starting to bottle up with 10 seconds left. Nowhere near the site and no chance in the world at pulling this one back. String gets another one. And Unified is going to buff his KD even further. Kansas State win round number 7.
Oh, that was brutal for Roger State. First of all, I mean, I made my opinions known on Fry going for the solo roamer kill with the diffuser, but then you don't have anything to deal with those hatches. You don't have the IQs. You can't get a drone in there to spot the claw. You're stuck. Funny thing enough, Happy, you said they didn't get kitchen. That wasn't electrified. It was stone cold steel. Benito still had a secondary hard breach, but they were all the way over in dirt. I think it's just a lot of errors really crashing into each other all at once, and you're starting to see the results of that with just an absolutely poor attack going into that basement. I think with Fry going on to the roamers, that's something you can change. But once you go back down to the basement, because Kansas State, they only need to win 2 more rounds, it's going to be map point, and you cannot try the exact same thing with the exact same operators.
Fortunately, no chance at the same thing happening this round. Is very different defensive site. Can't go back to one you just won for the next couple of rounds. And so for that reason, Kansas State now going up to gym and bedroom. A site that, well, maybe they were planning on running a castle for, but they won't have access to that. Instead, pretty typical ranked style lineup. Typical of a team that, you know, has an idea of what they want to do. Very good utility with the mute and the Mira. That'll help you a ton in playing some angles you want to win. And a lot of nade denial. Both Jaeger and Wamai on the board. But this also just speaks to me, hey, we want to play a couple 1.5s and we want to play our guns confidently.
We want to shoot.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Unified didn't even place his deployable shield down until right now. But I also think he's running the M870. Never mind, no. I don't know why I was seeing that. Anyways, he's not. Liddy Smitty's walking up main stairs, by the way, and they're just walking in the main breach. Trade on the player who's walked all the way through, but not ready for more inside a gym, but somehow still getting all the kills anyways. It's now just left his socks. In a 1-on-3, his teammate down could bring him back into the round. Instead, gonna focus first on bringing the case back into his own possession. He's got a lot of space to work with other than considering the player inside bathroom, but he's just killed that very player himself. String is down. He has to hop off the diffuser because he's worried about somebody pushing up on him, and that's a very legitimate threat indeed. On the very other side, of the bedroom wall is a Thorn who's just spotted him running across the window. Now he's going to try and prioritize the res, but Unified can just play that sound cue and wait to jump out at the perfect moment. They're going to go for it now. Unified can hear this. Jump out, my friend. Oh, he held himself a little bit too much, but he's just knocked down Socks for his trouble, and now Benito flashed outside the window. What on earth is going on? I think they're going to start to settle down now, hopefully, because I need a little bit of a break.
Yeah, play the revive game at this point. I mean, you knocked Sock's health all the way down to a minuscule 20. Benito to follow as well. And with Roger State, their entry clearly being indicated, and now information on the side of Roger State, that is going to be diminished simply because Unified has now rotated away from the area. There isn't much hope. Sock's flashing themselves. They might hop in the window, but that is covered by Unified. It's another mismanaged attack, and this was what I was worried about going into round 6 when I talked about how things would be once the side swapped. And it seems like Roger State, even though we've only had 2, one of them being a pseudo rush, it has just not gone the way that this team really would have liked, and now down 2 against Kansas State.
Nice shot to end it by Unified. And I like the idea they tried to go for it first. They tried to spot the gap that they could see in the defense, which is that they weren't anticipating a straight push right through the bedroom wall. Even with the mirror there, you kind of sprint forward and melee that, because there's nobody inside a gym preventing you from walking out the jacuzzi wall. Also nobody top main to prevent you from just walking in the jacuzzi wall and meleeing the mirror. And then you'd use that lack of information against the attack, or against the defense rather. And they used that quite effectively. However, Kansas State were just winning their individual fights. They were winning their ones at the end of the day. There's not much more you could ask of a team than that very thing. Roger State, I liked, again, their idea was good, but you can't win a round with even the best of ideas, or at least 90% of the time. You can't win the round even if you had the best idea if you lose most of the fights that you take. And they were catching a lot of those defenders off guard, so it kind of is shocking to me how Kansas State were able to pull those fights back. But they did. Now Roger State have to attack NECC.
Not only did they have a difficult time with the fights, they didn't get any trades. You had the initial one, which was the opening engagement, immediately down another player. It's a 4-on-4, but other than that, Roger State just weren't connected with each other. So it was just leading to body after body falling. Suddenly, it's essentially a 3v1 with the player down, of course, able to be revived. But Roger State having to attack this CC side. They know this side in and out on the defense, but the attack is simply a different story. They only have the second. Oh, I thought they only had the secondary harvest. No, they have the ace. That is going to get used up, but Worm is going to keep themselves by that construction wall, and you can bet they're going to try to keep that closed for as long as possible. And so far, Roger State, they're either going to have to rotate on over to Rafters, go up those red stairs, all of which are being watched by Kansas State.
Still plenty of time left to work with for Roger State to diversify themselves and try and mix up the angles at which they're going to attack the bomb site. The Unified is going to take down BG Benito in his attempt to probably do that very thing. Try and enter somewhere that maybe wasn't expected. Unfortunately, Unified very ready for it. And that's an early kill going to the defensive side. Jake is going to get some good info here, though, on this gym bedroom side and realize that it's pretty much free for the taking. However, that's just an illusion. Scoozy again on a very deep roam and can easily come back to flank the attack should they try and fall, or should they fall into the trap that is the free to take gym bedroom.
Seems like Kansas State, or excuse me, Roger State, are doing a little bit of what Kansas State did on their attack, which is going over to these entries and trying to get a free pick at that point. But oh, I love what Scoozy is doing on the flank. Jake and I think that Socks are gonna get pinched massively, as Socks has already gone down, and now Scoozy over in construction.
Oh, no.
He makes his presence known, and that makes what could have been an amazing flank just fall apart at the wayside. But even though he doesn't get a kill, it's still just his presence that is there. That's all you need at this point. With another player falling, I think that's Roger State attack just completely going by the wayside. And now, with 25 seconds left, it's going to have to be Jake and Smitty to get a massive play on themselves.
Jake gonna get a good shot to start us off, so it's gonna make things look a little more promising than perhaps they actually do. And a good nade to try and space things out so you can move out the door in from construction. But Worm was ready for that, and Green ready for the entry in from the main wall. Good 3-2-1 attempted, but Kansas State still win the round nonetheless.
Maybe you don't have the resources to do a 3-2-1 at that point. Usually you want to do it when maybe you're executing with like 4 or 5, not when you're in a 2v3 scenario. There hasn't been much to really highlight upon with Roger State. Most of these rounds haven't been anything to look at. I mean, the only thing was a big rush that just was not it at the end in Kansas State, despite the fact that they clearly were taken off guard. Roger State did not take advantage of that. That led to them losing, and now we're back to what is clearly Kansas State's favorite site. Here's where they started and probably where they had the best of times, considering that you had Unified over on that visual just absolutely running around the Kaid of String, which just threw a wrench in all of Roger State plans, yet they're still not bringing in IQ. They have the Thatcher, which I do like, even though right now Thatcher on the basement is just really hit or miss when you could just bring an IQ and be able to spot those Valkyrie cameras, potentially spot any other things that you would need to. But Roger State, it's their last-ditch effort for Clubhouse. We'll see if they can figure it out.
Yeah, they were thinking more literally just about the hatch problem and thought that, oh, well, we just need to cover a greater range with our EMPs and that'll do the trick. Which, yes, is going to work, but
What about the Black
the
Eyes?
IQ, yeah, exactly. Like, the IQ is also going to help a ton, is the Black Eyes. And that also the big problem with it is that you're getting Z-pinged all around. You don't realize the other team has perfect info on you, so you're not actively worried about that as much as you are something like the threat of the Cade Claws. Fortunately for Rogers State, if there is a threat of them getting slowed down again by these Cade Claws, it's likely that it will be negated by the fact that they are already working on said hatches. Less than a minute into the round, the Thatcher EMP is going to detonate without a hitch, and now the main hatch is opened, or rather the Moto hatch is opened, within a minute of the round starting. Whereas last time it was never opened at all. They can also look for the kitchen hatch, unless they're worried about it getting impacted, which it's not. Instead, there's a Cade Claw on it. But even still, Scoozy is able to get that opener, and it's not the greatest of starts for Roger State. Good trade back, though, by Smitty.
1 for 1. That's the trade game that seemed to be lacking. A really nice black eye camera. It's something you usually wouldn't see because it seems like it's right in the open. You get shot out, but no one's really gonna look at the camera that's on the stairs simply because it's out of line of sight, and you're only going to look at it if you're looking down while going up the stairs. Scoozy's on it. String still has the mirror window to fall back upon, and a good frag grenade might displace them and actually destroy the mirror, but it doesn't get out of the way for String. I think both the black mirror and the player fell down. A big play for Roger State. They need to make sure that they can actually win the round based off it. With the black mirrors up, that's one thing. You take it.
Watch for Unified, though. He's still alive and still kicking near the vending machine. However, he's going to get kicked out real quickly as Sox is going to take him down. Still a player advantage to the attack, and with the Yin Candelas, it should be pretty easy to break in here, but they're not ready for the prone angle, and Green has lined up to. It's now just left to Sox in a 1-on-2 with very little HP remaining. It's got to be less than 25, and it's got to be the ace to win them this round. Nice headshot into the first, though. You can have as little HP as you want, but if you hit a headshot before they're even shooting back at you, they don't stand a chance. But if you can see them with the red pings and they can't see you at all, then they stand even less of a chance. That exact scenario plays out at the end, and Worm will close us out in 7-3 fashion.
The String gets a nice little...
It seemed to be a problem last week as well, as only the couple of rounds they had across both maps is definitely worse than what's happening this week. They're already at 3 across map 1, and they've got a whole second map and maybe even a third to get even more. But for now, Kansas State definitely looks the stronger of the two. But Chalet, a whole new battleground. So we'll see what these teams can do, and we'll see what Rogers State can do, starting on their oh-so-important attacking side with Jackal off the board.
Last time, Rogers State went for a little bit of a unique defensive ban with Castle, and I don't think it really panned out at all. Kansas State only went to gym once, where we usually see Castle, and it didn't seem to have any effect. An ace ban, that'll make some of these breaches a little bit more difficult. My eyes go to the bakery wall, so you'll have to bring a Habana or a Thermite, so that could indicate that Rogers State maybe wants to hold the bakery or extend a little bit over there.
It's Chalet V.
It's the freaking background.
The same thing happened to me.
That's not fair. It's not my fault. I was
gotcha.
tricked by Daniel Time to Light.
Our lovely producer, Daniel Time to Light, playing a map in the background that is also happening in the background. He actually doesn't control them. Never mind.
I don't
I'm blaming the
care.
wrong
I'm
person.
still blaming him.
Anyways, map ban phase is over. Ace off the board.
It's Cafe again!
Stop! Dan!
My brain already hurts.
Ace is off the board. There was a lot of bandit tricking last map, so I'd imagine that ban is specifically in hopes of being able to bandit trick more. And so with an ace not there, now, you know, it's going to be harder to counter a bandit trick, because you think about the easiest counter to a bandit trick is just put 2 Salmos on both sides of the wall, and then you're perfectly fine. You could instead maybe do what they did last map with the Thermite and the ace, except instead of the ace, you use a hard breach charge. I could see that still working. You could also bring a Habana, though a Habana for a big wall is not really the most efficient of breachers, but still, you get the idea. Ace off the board. I like the ban for Rogers State. They are clearly adapting, albeit in pretty simple, just, well, let's adapt to the first solution we can think of. And so I like to see that. I feel like I'm very happy to notice that they're at least trying to improve things, and I think that by the end of the season, this could be a pretty solid team. You know, just keep playing the game together, learn how to play around your teammates more and more. However, for now, Kansas State seems to be the better of the two individually. Still have this whole map, though. Who knows? Maybe Rogers State or Demons on Chalet. I don't want to count them out too fast.
Yeah, so far, I mean, they do have the OSA, which maybe could indicate that they do want to go for potentially a fluke balcony push. Right now, Sox is just repelled over by the sunroom area, as Fry over by Trophy. So usually it's a pretty typical type of take coming out from the attack, because you want to gain control of the sunroom because it provides you access to both the site itself of bedroom, but also bathroom, which, depending on how the defense sets it up, can just give you help in a variety of ways. One talent shield is going to be prepped on the window, which just gives you a line of sight to a little bit of the site, as Benito is going to fire away through the bathroom window, takes out Worm. Can they keep themselves alive? Yes, they can, with the diffuser as well.
Unified barely missing out on that kill opportunity, and he thinks he might be able to see part of that Yang. If any little bit of the Hong Kong operator is exposed to this Jaeger, it will be game over for Benito, and that's diffuser out over where Benito is. So you can't afford to lose this. Unified is sticking to his guns on this window, but eventually will fall back right as Benito is seemingly starting to work more and more out into the vision. So if it had just been a little bit longer, Unified might have gotten that kill, but instead, the case is still alive on the bathroom wall, and the push still relatively alive and well in and of itself, but that's a great impact trick.
Oh, that is killer. Because you don't have a walkable hole anymore. It's just going to provide vision, and that got impacted as well. I think that might be Rogers State primary plan. I talked about in the first map how they need to have a secondary plan, and that's going to make things a lot easier. Great play by Jake to adapt, go underneath, as they have such a great advantage over their opponents. But as a player falls, and it seems like it might get worse, Kansas State are not ready to fall.
Unified already making sure one goes down, and he'll do the same to another. Nosy has the knock on the balcony, so why not make it 3? And now the Jaeger has completely turned the tides of the round. Sox is going to make things even better. Consistently a standout performer on a struggling Rogers roster last map. However, good info on his position. Those live pings are going to make things a lot harder, but he's meleeed the deployable camera. So that's not going to be an issue anymore. Why not just shoot it? You know, you could shoot it pretty easily. But he's about to look forward and focus more on shooting the Jaeger that's right ahead of him, and he'll do so quite effectively. It's now just left to Green, 1-on-2, but he can still play to try and deny this diffuser plant. Sox only just picking it up and still has to start getting it down. Cover from Smitty may not be totally there at the moment, so Green could walk up in through the closet, but he doesn't know where the plant's coming down, and so he doesn't realize that he could walk up closet and deal with it for free. Now, he's got to try and deal with both players in this post plant. C4 is a little bit too short, and Sox will not let you get away with that one. First round to Rogers State in a convincing way.
So many missed opportunities for Kansas State. That's one you're going to really want back. Now we have the God mode on. We can see alternative options that happen. When it comes to what Kansas State can actually do in the round, it's just play a little bit more conservative. Use the vertical destruction that the attack and the defense actually did and make the attack really work for the fuser and the plant. I think Unified playing the angle onto the bathroom is a mistake, especially considering that they know where the diffuser is, and all they have to worry about is the window, not actual entry into the bathroom. Because time is the sixth man, and I just don't think that Kansas State really utilized it very well. Especially, String went on a little bit of a flank, and it seems like the flank didn't work out for what Unified was trying to do. There's just, like I said, a lot of things that you really would want to do better on a second go-around, and I think that's why Kansas State are going back to the same site. They know they can win this. It just takes a couple changes.
It also seemed like across the board they were a lot more ready for a master or a take into office from mezzanine library side. That's the default you'll see a lot. And I was going to point that out until, you know, that whole scuffle on the balcony happened, and you had to, you know, more important things to mention. But it was kind of interesting to me to see a team like Rogers State go for a solar side take, because often it's kind of a lot more difficult. It can be a little bit uncomfortable to play off repels, especially for some less experienced players. And in this case, they're still going for the same thing, but Kansas State have adjusted pretty well. The castle barricades are all over the place to make sure that the master window is harder to open in and of itself, and that it provides less of an extreme cutoff for anyone trying to play near piano or the piano corridor just outside of master door. And you can already see Rogers State are struggling to adjust. Not to mention there's an electro claw on that wall that the Habanas were trying to open last time, and there's Unified downstairs, but he's just seen the Claymore. If he had not had that in the way, it probably could have been a multi-kill. Instead now, he's walked up the west main stairs, tried to do damage to Fry inside of Trophy, but the Zofia only going to lose a little bit of HP and is now wary of that flank. So Unified, 2 times over, has been denied kills by his presence being made known and wanting to keep himself alive. Which, you know, disappointing that he couldn't get the frags, but very important that he's still up and Scoozy's here to help him out as well.
Ooh, walking directly into your opponent's line of sight. Feels like there just wasn't some communication with Unified and Scoozy, especially considered that Unified wasn't actually able to provide any help. It's a good shot onto Fry, but things are getting worse up on that top floor because Rogers State once again has the man count. The only thing you can rely on is a Unified flank up this trophy stairs, but that's not going to be something that you really want to dedicate your entire round to, especially considered he just got dusted inside of the kitchen. Green and String remain the only ones really able to do anything, and String is just stuck in the bathroom. He cannot move.
There's a melee hole on the typical plant spot here. And so if they walk into the right spot and he makes sure that he holds his nerve as long as possible, this could be an outstanding spot to play late in the round, and exactly that's just happened. A double kill for String, spotted in the bathtub, but nothing Benito can do. He just has to wait until an opportunity is given to him. As a matter of fact, both of these players were effectively just holding crossfire angles, trying to make sure that they had as big a chance as possible to shut down anyone running up, but String was already in perfect position. Not even a Candela is going to stop this guy. A third kill for the Fenrir, and now it's just left to Smitty. The repellent is going to be oh so obvious and oh so dealt with, as Green shuts that down, and Kansas State respond in round number 2.
Beautiful patience coming out. I was wondering if he was going to take even longer to shoot it out, see if he could lure in anybody else. But the fact that you're able to get that second one, and then sometimes if you flash, you want to wait a little bit because the usual indication is you flash, jump on in, and the player knows where the window is. So they can essentially just pre-fire, and that's exactly what happened. Like the adaptations from Kansas State, they take it for that second time, and now they can head over to the basement where we get to see the tuba round for the first time in this entire game in combination with the bandit, and the fact that there is no ace. It might make this entire attack over by that trench and snowmobile wall really difficult to deal with, because you can't simply put both Selmas on both sides, and the thermite charge takes a pretty long while to actually detonate. I think Scoozy and Worm, they might be cooking something up here, and I want to know how Roger State are going to adapt to that.
Well, they've been adapting quite well in between rounds, but in the individual rounds themselves, sometimes they do struggle. They feel a little bottlenecked at times by the lineups they run. They run a lot of util heavy lineups, a lot of Thatcher, a lot of hard breach. That's been what they've been doing all map. But sometimes, it feels like that leaves you a little bit slower and not quite as able to send one person in through the gap that they can spot. And so without that kind of ability to be dynamic and catch the defense off guard, they're able to sort of hunker down inside the bomb site and feel relatively confident that you're going to push them exactly how they expect, and all they have to do is just set up the proper angles, something that Kansas State have absolutely done in this case. And so Rogers State, continuing to not really surprise anybody. However, they've been very good at not being surprised by these roam games. Unified, again, on a heavy roam, this time on Warden, but he's been spotted once again. So these walls being opened up is going to be very important for the attack, and Unified being spotted also going to help a ton.
You can see that Kansas State are really trying to gear themselves up for a snowmobile push, and now that Rogers State have gone for a trench, you would think that things would be disastrous, but Scoozy's just gonna fire away! Like, that's 3 for them, and that's Rogers State attack completely kaput. And I don't think it was anything of their wrongdoing. I think they get the wall open. That's great. Scoozy just shot.
Oh my gosh.
And shut it down. Easy as pie.
And that's part of one of the issues with not having someone yourself who is a serious threat to the defense in terms of getting aggro and playing crazy. It feels like it opens the opportunity for somebody like Scoozy to just walk forward and take every single fight. And he has not been punished for that all round. Not going to be punished for it in his 4th try. He's good for a 4th kill. May even be on for the ace, should they let him get the opportunity. First requires some info as to where Smitty is, but I don't think anybody shot the fireplace default, so they should know that he's walked through the fireplace area. He's already taken a lot of damage as well, but they're just kind of calling things out. The Jaeger dealing some damage through the wall or inside of the dining corridor. Either way, don't take the kill, man. Let him have the ace. String,
don't be like
that.
Ace.
Don't be like that, String. Call him out so Scoozy can come again. And that's exactly what seems to be happening, and he wants to do it with the pistol. Oh, it may be the most disrespectful ace you could possibly get. Only 3 rounds in, but Liddy Smitty ready for Scoozy to come around the corner. He may not have too much to play for, but he certainly denied an ace to the other team and boosted his own KD. He's got his, but I don't think his team's got that round. No, sir. Unified will shut it down.
A little bit of a fun one there, especially for Scoozy. You could tell they're like, okay, this is going to look really cool or really stupid. Maybe it was a little bit of the latter when it came to the pistol, but it was a very good job by Scoozy in the round itself. Sometimes making those plays is extremely hit or miss. You almost look like an idiot sometimes for just broadly peeking these areas that the attack are watching. But in the brief moments where it works, you are credited with such a play, and that's what happened there. For Scoozy, he's able to get the 4K, able to single-handedly win the round for Kansas State in that scenario. Now puts them on top after a mediocre first round. And now, as they head over to that kitchen, Rogers State still bring that util, the sledge, the Zofia, the Nomad for the anti-roam. They brought the gridlock prior. I want to know what Sox is going to do with the 0. where exactly they're going to place that, if it's going to be a sort of anti-roam like we would usually see, or you maybe get things done on the top floor and actually shoot out the potential Kaid claws with the Zero, which I don't see too often, and it's kind of a shame, because I think it's a really cool strategy that some teams can do, but other options usually are superior.
Also, one small thing about that last round, I want to give compliments to Scoozy on a very micro level. Notice that before he swung the snowmobile breach, he chucked a tuber out at the door to discourage anybody from peeking him, because you think about that wide swing, you could very easily get caught from that door. So, just shows that these players are very, very smart, even at a small level, not just in terms of knowing what they want to do on a big scale in the round, but also knowing what they want to do in individual fights and in very little scenarios. However, moving into this next round, it feels like Rogers State are trying to go for a very different kind of lineup. You mentioned, like, not sure what the Zero is going to do. He has an MP7, so that's definitely something he could do, is shoot with that. And this lineup in general seems to be a lot looser than anything Rogers State have been bringing thus far. I feel like I just mentioned last round that they were bringing very heavily structured lineups, but this one, you know, very fluid. You've got a Finka and a Zero that are both kind of loose. You have hard breach gadgets on 2 different operators, so you can afford to take engaging aggressive fights with one of them and not necessarily lose that hard breach potential. And you also have an ARX with a 1.5 times scope. Probably not why they're bringing the Nomad, but it's still worth mentioning.
Not only are the operators kind of individual, the players seem to be individual themselves. I mean, you had Smitty over by the balcony. Jake is over by the piano window. There's not a lot of areas where you can provide great crossfires, so instead you just kind of get picked off. And what seemed to be a Rogers State team that worked together very slowly is now just a lot of players separate that aren't getting anything done. A great shot from Scoozy. And Sox is left in a 1v5, very reminiscent of the last round with Smitty all alone by themselves. And even a run out from Worm, and it just gets worse and worse from here on out.
Hopefully that's not tilt speaking, because Rogers State, you talked about it, have looked so cohesive and coordinated all game, but that last round just felt like a totally different team. They all tried to spread out as much as possible and try and play their ones, see where they could get a pick to open things up, but they just didn't get the chance. And at this point, we have to resort to the oh-so disappointing color point of what can you do when the other team is just shooting better than you in certain situations, right? You can try to outstrat them. You could try to play very traditionally like they did in round number 3, only to get gunned down by Scoozy 1 by 1. You could try to spread out a lot and play heavily into gunfights with guns you're confident on like you did in the last round, only to lose the individual fights to people like Unified, like Scoozy, and like Worm. At a certain point, it feels like it's like, you know, we know what we want to do, but the execution has been a bit of an issue for Rogers State. And I've definitely felt impressed by some of their players individually. Sox looked pretty good statistically last map. Jake has had a number of shots that show that he has a very high skill ceiling, and it really applies to every single one of these players. But you do need to kind of work as a cohesive unit and not get too caught up in, oh, we're losing our 1v1s, then let's just try and go take 1v1s, right? Because like you mentioned, it felt like they didn't have any crossfires last round. They didn't have any potential to catch Kansas State looking the wrong direction.
Usually it's not the solution. The problem is not usually the solution. You are right in that scenario. But Rogers State, they have attempted this before, and they've actually been successful. But when they tried the exact same thing, it didn't work out. Unified didn't realize that was a head that Crosshair was directly on, and the freest kill just slips away. Instead, they take a ton of damage, only saved by the fact that Orden is a very chunky man, and they still live to see another day and to breach through these candelas.
Oh, Jake's been flanked on. Unified. You said that he didn't see the kill that he could have had. Well, eventually able to get something, so not too disappointed with the way the round has played out, I'm sure. And down goes Jake, a very important operator. The first time I would say that they brought someone who's very clearly just kind of Your entry player. You're bringing an Ashe. You want the Ashe to run in first and try and take some fights. Unfortunately, wasn't even aware that Unified was where he was. And so now Unified, they're very much aware that he is where he is now, and he's only got 1 bill of HP. That's a good kill for Fry. But in the meantime, 2 more kills for Kansas State. And I mean, you take 1 step forward, and you take 2 back in that very moment. You also started a step back from where you could have started off initially. And so with that, 2-player advantage for the defense, and Fry and Smitty seem to just look a little directionless for the time being.
So what kind of happens when you're at this stage is you don't really have many avenues to success, so you just hope you pick one direction and hope for the best, and sometimes you just get gunned down. Actually depart at odd areas. I don't exactly know why Fry was over by the bar, Smitty's walking up by main. It's very interesting choices, but like I said, you don't really have many choices to begin with. It's a good shot, but once again, you're in a 1v3, 30 seconds left. You don't even have the diffuser in this scenario, so you're just hoping for the best.
Pads his stats just a little bit. He's about to die.
He dies.
There you go. Green takes the kill. Down goes Smitty. Another round for Kansas State, as they just seem to be on an unstoppable streak. And Rogers, I mean, they started off well, but it's been a bit of a cold streak, much like last map, since Kansas State have gotten hot.
I think this is just Roger State struggling on the attack, like they did in the previous map.
Yeah,
You
called it.
One fix-all that I kind of said, which was just like, hey, your attack is really where you're struggling. If you could change that, things are going to get better. You're not going to be able to change your attack too much over the course of, what was it, about 5 minutes? And Roger State, they've done what they can in that first round, but ever since then, it has just been the exact same thing over and over and over again. The rounds haven't even been close, Happy, to be honest. So Kansas State really look like they have taken control of Shoutlight in the entire game, and a 5-1 is where we could potentially end, with a 4-2 being the best that Roger State can do, which I still think Kansas State would be disappointed with, but knowing that they were able to get attacking rounds in the previous house while their opponents weren't, definitely eases their worries at the moment.
Feels like Roger State are too stuck in their ways in terms of sticking to the strats, and it's good to play a strategy you know is effective, and the strats they're playing aren't bad ideas. But a while ago, I was once talking to some of my teammates in a little bit of a ranked, in the starting phase of a ranked team, the drone phase, before we even really knew what was going on the defense. And I was mentioning to some of them, like, oh, we should try this strategy or that strategy. And one of them just said, like, we should probably see what they have on the defensive side first and then adjust it. And that kind of, you know, lit a light above my head that you can't just stick to your guns. Unified is sticking to his gun, and it's very much working. Jakeru is about to get the trade, though. An outstanding trade at that, and that's a better job of being well-positioned to play off of your teammates. You get that information on the first kill, and you trade things out. Also, the switch of the Amaru is a very fun switch, just because, you know, quicker entry, you get into the building, and you let Jake use his gun. I like these that Rogers are making, so it's good that they're not sticking too heavily to their strategies, but, you know, is it going to be enough? Because you still have a lot of good gunners to deal with on that defensive side for Kansas State. And, oh, I think the bandit trick is about to work.
Yeah, I mean, there's also no reason that you should have...
Oh, we're not... Okay.
Okay.
He just gets the kill anyways. Like
I don't know if... Did they read the patch notes that you have the delay after the ice goes away before the electricity?
They probably did, but I honestly, it was worded kind of weird, and I didn't even realize what that meant for a while.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I agree, but
Yeah,
it's just an interesting idea that actually pans out. Like you said, that they're able to get the kill. Scoozy is still chilling with the DMRs. We've seen how powerful they can be sometimes when they can just peek these angles. They don't usually think they wouldn't win them, yet somehow they do, as Jake has a great peek and now makes it even.
Another good kill for the Amaru. It's been a very valid weapon, a very deadly weapon in opening up some of these opportunities that they've had this round. But it won't be a weapon they have access to anymore, but Smitty still has access to the Type 89 and is going to make sure that Worm doesn't have access to anything. for the remainder of the round. Even damage dealt to String over in blue. Good information, but Benito just exposing himself without even realizing Scoozy gets 2, and something about the tuber out for this man right here on this site right here is just beautiful.
It literally does feel like it's lightning in a bottle. That it's this specific operator on this specific site.
That
we really
spot
never
of
saw
the site too.
Exactly. It's just trench. I don't know. It's like a monkey's paw. Where it's like, oh, I wish I was good at Siege. Okay, you get this one spot with this one operator. Regardless, Rogers State have a huge mountain to climb at this point. They're down 4 rounds. They haven't been able to. They weren't able to get anything on their attack, and now on their defense, they're going to have to beat Kansas State at their own games. Kansas State really does like this second floor. I think a lot of it's gonna come down to those roamers, whether or not they can make Kansas State care about them and actually dedicate resources to them. Because otherwise, I'm just gonna see Kansas State do some pretty basic things. The roamers will probably like make their presence known by walking up main stairs or library stairs instead of waiting till the last possible second, like you might see some teams do, just to truly punish them for not caring about them. Otherwise, Kansas State, I'm still betting my money on them for this.
You're talking a lot about the roamers. I don't really see anybody in this team composition that fits the bill of a roamer. Maybe a Rooney, but with that in mind, you mentioned that it's important for the roamers to not let their presence be known, or I guess, I mean, like he's playing mezzanine. This is a heavy library side hold in preparation for a heavy library sided take, and I think Jake was towards Mez. If not, it's just Smitty over here. Oh no, Jake is roaming actually. He's underneath. So yeah, that you were right. I didn't think a Doc would be roaming, but I guess they're just kind of letting Jake pick his operator and say, just go try and kill people. I guess at this point, this feels like a very tough situation to be in. But Smitty for now just trying to delay just a little bit, make sure that Jake goes unspotted, and he's underneath that very window that there's one player outside of. And Doc has access to a bailiff, so he might be ready for that jump in. Instead, it's the hatch jump in that he's ready for. But instead, he'll die, actually, to Scoozy right after Smitty just went down. And this is the thing we're talking about so much. What can you do when Kansas State's just outgunning you?
A lot of times it usually involves crossfires. I mean, something of the sort, but when you're on the roam and you're playing such dissimilar positions, you can't do anything like that. And even over on the anchors, I'm not seeing too many crossfires actually get set up to where I was going to be able to ice the wall, slow that down. Eventually, it will get open, and Fry will have to deal with that. But so far, they are going to be a little bit safe. Here comes another Zoto canister. It's going to be frozen. That's another 10 to 15 seconds that the attack is going to have to wait. There's another Zoto canister. I want to say something, but I don't think it's appropriate for broadcast, so I will hold my tongue.
Oh, alright. Well, on that note, 50 seconds left. They've got a good Z-ping onto 1, so as if things couldn't get any better, Sox is getting pre-fired from the office balcony. Fry has given up his position very close. So now they'll know to expect a wide swing from an MPX anytime soon. At the very least, they'll know that it's a possibility, as String still sitting on his drone out here. He could get swung on pretty quickly, and I would like for the tuber out to do that. You're losing this man advantage. There you go. Try and get active somewhere and eliminate an extra threat if you can. Benito's in a pretty solid position to deal with a jump in through Piano, and it may be something he has to deal with. There's somebody on the master balcony right now as well, and or rather the master window, and they're kind of isolated from everybody else, but they're going to rappel in and try and make the play, but it's Green through this smoke who ends up getting one. Benito with his C4 is able to deal with Green, but his gun is not up to deal with the player right in front of him, and it'll be that very player of Worm to shut that round down.
One more round for Kansas State. I can head to bed, all nice and easy, settle in, and go to classes tomorrow. Because I know that, well, no, it probably did not snow in Kansas tonight, a state not typically known for its snow. So,
I'm not sure where Rogers is. I'm not going to lie. I got to look that up.
I don't know, but for talking about Kansas State, I don't
in
think
Oklahoma,
there's too much to
so it didn't snow there either.
improve upon. Yeah, both these teams don't have to worry about that.
Yeah,
But with Kansas State, there's not much to improve upon. I think it's kind of a thing where it's like, if it's not broke, you don't need to fix it. Rogers State, there's a lot to fix. You've won 4 rounds over the past 2 maps. You're going back to the same site, which usually indicates that you do want to fix something. But there's not a lot of changes. I mean, you've got the Legion, you've got the Cap Can. Changing out the Tuba route for no denial at all, I think, is an interesting choice, because I think that was the one maybe highlight of the previous run, was because the attack had to wait. That opened up certain opportunities where the attack was, or excuse me, the defense was able to go to certain areas and actually find kills, like we saw Fry do near Fluke Balcony. They're trying to enable trap operators, maybe go on operators they're a little bit more comfortable with, which I'm always for. But I think in terms of how the site works, these ops aren't really going to help you out in changing what you need to.
Running the Roni on a Rooney. That's, something. Not typical. You normally see that 1.5 times scope being used. Smitty was on that last round. Big Roni fans, though, that could definitely make a little bit of a difference. Would be easier to fight this window if you had that extra magnification. You've also got Socks basically taking up that position that we saw Jake in last round. So really not adjusting that much. They're changing the operator lineup, but they're not really changing where they are. And Worm is going to deal with one just a bit off when trying to deal with the player inside of games. But the pressure from the double window is going to give him a second try, and he absolutely won't miss that. Now it's the Aruni's job to fall back to site because her teammates downstairs have been killed very fast. Smitty is going to do just that. But it's still a 2-player advantage to Kansas State with a lot of time to spare.
Oh, they know where Jake is, too. Good little Twitch drone. Yeah, that's not where the drone is. You might have spotted it by now. It's right out
it's
of the
one of
open.
I think
Because
it's
Jake's spikes one.
I think it's bugged. I think it's bugged.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's...
Well, bug or
that's
not, I don't really believe in Rogers State at this point, because, yeah, even Jake's a little bit confused. As Kansas State, all they need is one more. It's just cleanup duty at this point, then they're all done.
Just left to Fry, 1-on-4. Does manage to get the first one. Don't count him out of it necessarily, as Unified and Scoozy have already been taken down. It's a couple of very big threats on the attacking side. They're 2 top fraggers, as a matter of fact, through this map thus far, but Fry not going to be ready for green on the other side. And let him get on the board. Let the Thermite take another kill, boost his KD, as you already know that it's a round win and a map win and a series win for Kansas State. Rogers managed 4 rounds across the whole best of 3, and Kansas State managed all 14 to send us home in quick 2-0 fashion.
Kansas State, it's a great way to come out of your bye. Shows everybody that despite you not